What's going on, Emily?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. You have so much green behind you. Is that all like real?
Yeah, it's a hydroponic garden. Lots
Is
of
it a bunch of
lettuces
like
and
herbs
herbs
and
and
stuff?
stuff.
Yeah, nice. I think the only herb I've ever grown was like mint, and it grows like a weed. It grows everywhere. At least here in this area, Memphis. It takes over like an entire garden if you don't watch out.
We don't have any mint in here right now, but it's definitely missing.
Yeah, I feel like you have to have mint, especially if you ever do mojitos or anything like that. It's a required thing.
The mint acquired some bugs that needed to get killed and
Yeah.
has to be replanted.
Since we're kind of waiting on people, I figured I'd ask what's the fastest way to build a lifecycle binary for Linux? Is it just the make build Linux? Is that the because I notice it seems to always it requires a Docker file, I guess. So it always has to like pull GCC and stuff.
Uh, yeah, make build Linux is the fastest way to do it. I think that task could be sped up a lot with some caching.
Yeah, it's
I
kind
think
of
it's installing the packages on the Alpine image that take the most time.
right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's kind of
I
what I
don't think
figured. I've been using that and
there's
I have some crazy like make files to just sort of mount everything into like some test bed so I can like easily run stuff and it works okay. But like that's by far the longest part of the problem. It's because it's faster than making a builder every time where you have to actually have the you know tarball of the Linux or sorry lifecycle stuff. But um, yeah. Anyway, just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing a trick of like some other build somewhere that's like, oh yeah, it just builds in like 2 seconds because Go doesn't usually take that long, but it's installing all of the packages dependencies.
the problem is we're statically compiling in libc or muscle libc, so we have to run on Alpine and we need to install the specific dependencies we need first. If you want a PR to make it faster, I
Yeah,
happily accept it. I don't think there's a big technical barrier to making it faster. I feel like no one's done it
it's
yet.
just work. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we get started? Do we know if Natalie's coming today? I can ping her. I feel like that's the only person who's missing here that I would expect. It seems like she's on vacation today. So this might be a really fast meeting because I haven't done anything on the life cycle in the last week. Does anyone who has been working on implementation want to give a status update, what they're looking at?
Sure. From my side, I've been working on stack build packs. Yeah, I guess after the status update, I can kind of go over a couple of the things I'll be getting into because it'd be kind of good to get people noodling about how to make this work. So when or specifically around caching and stuff, so we can dive deeper into that after anyone else is giving updates.
No updates from me. I think you can full speed ahead.
No Windows implementation concerns we should be thinking about.
We've been working mostly on the pack side at the moment. I mean, something that is related is the lifecycle images and pack, but it's not requiring any changes on the lifecycle so far.
I think we are publishing the Windows images now. Have you run into any problems using those? It's been okay so far.
No, I think no issues. I think the implementation has been fairly smooth. We've run into issues, but it's mostly our own things with like the runners on GitHub Actions and stuff like that. But I think Micah did bring up some potential changes to lifecycle related to permissions or something as a result of this, but I think it was determined that we can address them via pack rather than a lifecycle change. It was some Slack thread that I saw between you and him, I think, like a week ago or so.
Yeah, I think he's asking about how directory permissions are fixed when you run detector, so the not creator version. But the answer to that is the lifecycle can't do that because in that case, you're not running as root, so it doesn't have the permissions to fix things. So you need to fix it in advance.
Yeah, so I think so far it's just everything's landing on the pack side. So we'll bring up any issues in the platform meeting.
Cool.
Which I guess we missed yesterday. It would have been good to go to that one.
Should Lifecycle introduce a prepare phase that's supposed to run as root that does some very specific things like owning directories and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so.
I think we need. It's always duplicated. Tecton, KPack, like every platform has to do basically at least a few of the same things with like, mounted folders and stuff. That makes making sure ownership is correct before you do it, and you have to do things like know a user ID up front to do, and you've got to kind of inspect it at runtime to do that.
Once upon a time, we had such a thing, but we used it at that time it was Knative build, but the precursor to Tecton. We ended up removing it because we made changes to the point where the only thing it was doing was troning directories. And it seemed like overkill to have a binary that we're shipping that just does the equivalent of 2 tron commands. So we just switched out for the tron commands in the template.
But with Windows coming back, it could make it, could make sense again, I think.
Yeah, and I think in a different world, you can make it do more as well. Like, I think it'd be cool to validate registry credentials up front. You can make it download missing build packs, sort of like a platform. I like Stephen calling it platform light. It does some of the pack things, but for Kubernetes-based platforms where you have to run in a container and you don't have pack.
I'm very interested in doing something like that. So it's good to hear that no one's like wildly against it. So like maybe we start that process at some point, outlining what it might do.
Yeah, I think there's broad agreement that we should do it. So just got to write an RFC and describe what goes in it and how. So is there anything specific you wanted to talk about with stack packs here, Jesse, that we're not going to do in the breakout later?
Yeah, the breakout it's probably gonna get overloaded, but I kind of at least wanted to um, mention like caching. Like, it seems like it's gonna be a pretty hard problem to solve. I think, just because even the simplest like stack pack example of like apt get install packages. Um, you know, if you wrote one today, you'd probably run apt get update, which is going to update the sources list. Um, and thinking about a cache scenario, if we use the snapshot as the cache, then when you come back, like, you're probably going to want to do an apt get update again to see whether you need to do anything on the next build, and that's going to change the snapshot. So you won't be able to use the snapshot from before. So there's no way to immediately, at least apparent to me, to like communicate like, okay, yeah, there are going to be changes to that source list of other packages you probably don't care about. But if you were just trying to install like ffmpeg or something, then you're gonna bounce out in the build and be like, oh, I don't need to do anything. You already have this version, but now we have to create a new snapshot. I think because the source file has changed.
I think if we're talking about sort of like the package index and cache, I thought at one point there was an idea that you could specify paths within the snapshot that wouldn't be included in the exported layer, but could be cached. So like maybe we would take we'd use the Kaneko implementation to create a tar that is a snapshot, the way we're doing now. But then we ourselves could read through the tar and sort things in it into either a cache layer or a launch layer. And then the launch layer gets applied to the image and the cache layer gets put in the cache and then restored.
Yeah, I do know that there's exclude somewhere in there that's meant to exclude from. I thought it was from everything, but I guess to your point, yeah, maybe exclude needs to be specific for whether it's the launch layer or the cache layer, because you'd want to keep the sources for, you wouldn't want them in the launch, but you'd want them in the build cache or whatever next time.
I think we always want to be able to exclude, and then we optionally want to be able to cache what we exclude. I don't think we want to cache the launch layer, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so we'd have a single snapshot, but just a bunch of metadata stored in like the layer tunnel or something or somewhere that that you think we could probably during the restore process, like pull out the things that we actually care about for cache or something.
We haven't like talked about this as a group yet, but in my mind, even though I know the snapshot generates one layer, I want us to like manually split it into multiple layers. And so then after that, we can think about them like we do our normal layers. We can say, oh, we're restoring it. I mean, there'll obviously still be differences given restores root and stuff like that, but
we could maybe take actual multiple snapshots, like with different sets of ignore paths. Like, I wonder if we make like two different snapshots, like a cache snapshot and a launch snapshot. I wonder if that.
I think what's hard about that is you'd need to like invoke bin build twice, because the starting and stopping of the snapshot's a lifecycle thing, but the what happens in the middle is a build pack thing.
Yeah, but when you init it, I think isn't that when it kind of takes the first snapshot? Like, wouldn't it always be a diff between the first snapshot and when you call take snapshot?
Yeah, but let's say you have a build pack. How do you have one build pack make two layers, right? Without invoking bin build twice. If the lifecycle is the one that's saying, now we're done the snapshot, let's start the next one.
Oh, well, so yeah, I was thinking the lifecycle right now, it's implemented in the builder part, and it just does like in each group, it takes a single snapshot. If it could just call snapshot twice, once with two different path sets, like at the same time. So a single bin build run. I wonder if we can output.
You could do like an exclude or include.
Yeah, exactly. Like
yeah,
invert
that kind of
makes maybe. Sense. Like I wonder if we could like sort of create two different snapshots and actually create two separate layers so that we can actually emit two different launch tomls, maybe even, or layer tomls, so that we have like one with build equals true and cache equals true or whatever, and one with cache equals false, and two different
That's
tar
clever.
balls. I wonder if that would maybe help us out here.
What I was going to do is essentially like take the layer and slice it like we do the apter, right? You can use the excludes to slice what would have been one layer.
Yeah, if we can lean on Canico to do that for us, basically, because they already have
Maybe
the
that's even
layering stuff.
easier.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
easier. Okay. All right. Well, I'll
Maybe
give that
because we
some
already
thought.
have slice logic, maybe that's easier. Like, but it's a little
Yeah.
bit different because it's not a directory. So I don't know which one.
Yeah, I don't know how the
Which
slice
is
stuff.
better?
Yeah, do it over a tar. But
If Canigo can do it, sounds better.
all right, cool. Yeah, I guess that's it. I think we're gonna talk about it a lot later on. I just kind of wanted to get people's noodling on the problem a bit in case there's some clever ideas that come out of this or problems that people are thinking about precursor to the discussions.
I have like one big, maybe dumb question about the build version of the snapshot logic. I was realizing the other day that, okay, so we're running the builder on the build image and running the stack packs and taking snapshots. In cases where there's no caching, why are we even bothering to take a snapshot? There's nothing to do with that snapshot, right? We're not exporting it anywhere.
Yeah, I
We're
think the
only
current
trying to change
implementation
the
doesn't
state of the
do
builder.
anything. Yeah, exactly. Right now, for the build only things, it's taking snapshots needlessly. I think because there's just no. Yeah, I guess the problem is I think it was building it out at first to do the run image extend, but we just haven't got there yet, and so I guess you won't. Yeah, and I guess we don't even need snapshots. Yeah, with no cache, we just never need snapshots. Is that right? Yeah.
On the build image, right? Because you've just changed the state of the container. That's all you wanted to do.
The same is really true on the run image too, right? Because it produces a new image or whatever that you build.
That one doesn't make as much sense to me, right? So like on the run image, we have to create these layered tomls in the layer directory. Oh, sorry, not layer toml, layer tarballs, so that the exporter can then export them into the final image, right?
Okay. Yeah, so that one does need it. Okay, all the time. Yeah, it's okay. Okay.
Are we going to have a run restore phase? Can you restore things on run? How do we keep them separate as well?
Yeah, we haven't got anywhere near that yet because we're just talking about the restore phase of the build right now, and that's already complicated by the fact that even if we store all these the tars for cache, like restore can't actually restore them. The builder's going to have to do it because it's the thing that runs as root, unless we decide to allow restore to run as root as well. In the case of having privileged cache, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah. Yeah, but the run image is going to have, is it going to restore the snapshots from the previous run layer? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Like, are we going to do a restore phase on the run image?
I didn't think we would.
Image?
Yeah, at first, but I hadn't really thought too much about it actually, because run images don't change today, so I hadn't even really given it any thought that the run image would need, that re-extending it would need to be fast. That's not something I have really given it any thought.
I do think we should keep it as part. I don't think we should move it into the build phase. I think it needs to be part of the restore phase for credential hygiene.
Okay, so you think the restore should be able to run as root then, or privileged?
Yeah, and do the same thing builder does, where first it does its stack stuff, and then it does its, then drops and does the rest of it. I think it's cleaner too when we're describing the phases. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't want to allow it.
Yeah, it just means suddenly you're running as privileged for like most of your phases at this point. Sure. I guess that's okay. I guess that's the cost of stack build packs. Okay, yeah. Well, then when we get to the restore part, I'm kind of wondering if there also shouldn't be a in the layer toml if there shouldn't be a privileged flag, so the restorer knows that it has layers to restore that are privileged, so it can request the permissions up front or bail if it can't.
Yeah, I think we need in the stack in the cache metadata to describe
Yeah.
which ones are stack layers versus which ones are normal layers. I think we also need to say which ones are for the build image versus which are for the run image if we do that. Or maybe those are just two different caches entirely. I don't know, but probably worth thinking about.
It's getting complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing it for the build stuff's pretty straightforward. Once you get past build, it's starting to get a bit wild.
Yeah. I really want all of these details in the RFC to a certain extent. I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable with some of the hand waving, like, and we'll do an excludes and it will exclude, like, but exactly how and where and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think when I get to start storing cache, I'll have to figure out, I'll get deeper into where we need to store things. But I'd like to keep the layers directory. What I was thinking about right now, the current implementation just stores a tarball in the layers root. But I actually think I want to make like a known snapshot directory that we put the tarballs in, just like you do for the other build packs, so that everything's in the same directory structure. There's no tarball just sitting in layers, and it has its own. And I think it'll probably have its own layer toml for that as well, so that it's because otherwise we're going to make these weird assumptions in places where it's like it's a tar, so is it a snapshot, and like I kind of feel like that's weird. So I'm probably going to change that to start emitting the metadata files for now.
That makes sense to me. We could create a snapshot.toml file. That's like the layer toml for the snapshot, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
I think I'm good.
All right, should we call it then?
All right. I'll see y'all later.
See you.